Throughout the ages, mankind has created an astonishing array of technologies, devices, and weapons that have been lost to the pages of history. What would it be like to go back in time and experience the most ingenious inventions of the past?
Fire!
Our team of master craftsmen has agreed to find out. Together, for the first time in history, we've asked the guys at the Scare Factory to bring back to life the most creative, inspired, and deadly inventions of all time. The goal is simple: to relive the past by exploring, experiencing, and surviving history. Just outside of Columbus, Ohio, the team at the Scare Factory is preparing for another journey into the world of experimental archaeology.
In experimental archaeology, you recreate firsthand with your own hands the devices, the tools that those ancient cultures would have used.
That was better.
We're taking these elements from history, recreating them, using them, and getting feedback on what that would be like. Bam, living history. That's perfect.
Chad and the team are ready to begin a new historical experiment by reconstructing a 17th century English punishment device known as the lyre rack.
My big project this week was the Liar's Rack. It was a pretty big project. DJ helped me out doing the steel frame for it.
The lyre rack is a 5-sided spindle that the victim sits on. The arms of the victim are strapped above their head, and their legs are tied with weights. Then the operator turns the spindle, beating and shredding the insides of the thighs and sensitive groin area. Historian Meg Matier joins Brian to provide some perspective on the lyre rack.
This was our first attempt of drawing how we were going to build this thing.
Right. The Liar's Rack is a very interesting device. It seems to be not a device for execution, but probably a device for punishment, for lying, such as slander, libel, or perjury.
Dave checks in with the team to find out the measurements of the lyre rack's devastating spindle.
This is 11. When it's overall done, it'll be 12. Is that enough?
Yeah, because if it's too big, you're right. It's just going to ride along the thighs, and it's not going to hit, I think, what was intended for it to hit.
What kind of spreads you out?
Mm-hmm.
That'll spread me out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, any way you do it, it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
I think it was meant for men, but I'm pretty sure I think it'd be just as terrible on a woman.
In 1649, English law was heavily influenced by Christian Puritans, who used literal interpretations of the Bible to form public policy. Cruel devices like the lyre rack were often employed by the Puritans, who considered lying a horrible crime. While Chad and his team continue their recreation of the lyre rack, Eric, the shop's art director, and Kermit, one of the team's fabricators, begin a new historical experiment, the Branks. Designed to impede the senses of its victims and hinder speech, the Branks mask was used primarily in England and Wales during the 17th and 18th centuries to punish unruly women. Branks masks were built in all shapes and sizes and often included a cowbell to announce the presence of the victim. Some versions of the Branks would obstruct the victim's sight and hearing, while others included a mouthpiece, rendering speech impossible. Dr. David Sestak, an expert in emergency medicine, is on hand to enlighten the guys on the medical effects of the Branks.
And I understand you're in charge of making the Branks mask,
That is correct.
You're taking away the vision, you're augmenting the hearing, you're having difficulty if you've got this mouthpiece, maybe even handling your own saliva, some of those secretions and your gag reflex. So
That could be
looks like a
bad.
and that could be a lethal type injury, quite honestly. If you were to have an upchucking episode and aspirate those stomach contents. So it's not entirely a benign device.
Branks masks were used to punish outspoken women. In the 17th century, the rights of English women were significantly restricted. The concept of free speech was non-existent, and if women excessively nagged or scolded their husbands or neighbors, they could be formally charged. The official crime was common scold. Women would stand trial for the offense, and if found guilty, would be sentenced to wear the branks.
So Kermit's making the mask, and I'm sure he's gonna put some ridiculous twist on it. I think it's gonna be very effective, but it's also gonna look ridiculous.
We're pretty much allowed to use our creative freedom. We don't have to build it strictly by the books because there was nothing really built by the books in those days.
Kermit incorporates features from several different Branks masks into his own. Kermit's version muzzles the mouth and obstructs the eyes. His gigantic ears produce an ear-splitting, clacking sound that's channeled directly to the victim's eardrum. Dave stops in to look at Kermit's interpretation of the Branks mask.
What I did was I made the ears hollow, the big nose piece with the wart.
Right.
I designed it so that the two chains they actually come down the back side of the helmet, come up through your armpits, and they all connect into the front. There's an additional mouthpiece will get put into the person's mouth.
And then by locking in here, it keeps it, you can't get it out.
Right, locked here, and then the other chains come up and lock onto it also so they can't get out of it.
You've been practicing this at home, haven't you?
Yes, just a little bit.
Women accused of scold crimes were often convicted based on the testimony of their husbands. The branks was sometimes used to punish women accused of practicing witchcraft.
Kermit's Branks looks kind of like a goblin. It's got a big, long, pointy nose. It's got big, floppy ears that are on pivots, so when somebody's moving, they're gonna go tack, 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 tack on the side of his head.
That's loud, dude. It's really, really loud.
Kermit has nearly finished the reconstruction of the branks. Josh has agreed to wear the mask while continuing to work as floor supervisor.
I basically run around like a chicken with its head cut off. I answer people's questions, and I make sure everybody's doing their job and getting everything done. Hey, I don't need any lip out of you.
Josh's test of the branks may be an historic event. There are no records of men ever wearing the mask. While the first use of women wearing the branks is still unknown, records show that the device was used as early as 1567 in Edinburgh, Scotland. Kermit has completed the recreation of the branks experiment, and it's time to present the device to Josh.
Is it finally done? What the hell is that?
This is your mask, man. What do you think of it?
A little bit overkill, don't you think?
No, not at all.
All these other guys want to not try anything like that or don't have the balls to do it, so I'm man enough to do it. I'll step up to the plate. You guys can embarrass me all you want.
There's a little Tinkerbell at the top, huh?
He's even got little flaps for your eyes.
This is what I'm supposed to stick in my mouth?
Yeah, well, it doesn't go all the way
Nice all rusted and splinters.
You ready?
Oh, this is ridiculous.
I can imagine having to support that and walk around with that. It would be incredibly uncomfortable.
All right, Big Daddy. Yeah, you'll just slide that right over top of your big head like that.
Josh is ready to experience the humiliation of this 16th century punishment. Since the device was designed exclusively for nagging women, Josh may be the first man to ever wear the branks.
This is really evil.
That is really, really loud.
Josh, the floor supervisor, is ready to test the Branks mask, a 16th century punishment that impedes the victim's senses of sight, hearing, and ability to speak.
Put it down right. Yeah, there you go.
He even put blinders on there for you. Yeah.
Listen.
I like the way the ears move.
Ow.
Is that noisy?
Loud as
Very noisy, isn't it?
It's a painful device. It's heavy, and then you got all this jagged steel hitting you in the head.
It's not going to take long for Josh to be, okay, I've had enough, get me out of this thing. I don't think it's going to take half an hour.
Victims subjected to the Branks mask suffered more than just sensory deprivation. Many Branks were also equipped with a long chain.
It's a party. 8 o'clock starts now.
The husband then would parade his wife around the public square, emphasizing the fact that she is a nag and a scold in public scorn. So it's again one of those devices that really focuses on embarrassment, especially against women. So a device obviously that's not used much today, thank goodness.
What? Oh,
I'm so glad I did not have to do the Branks. I tried it on earlier when Kermit was messing with it. It looks like it sucks. I would not want to have to wear that for a long time.
So Josh's job requires and seems to make him talk a lot, which he likes to do, obviously. We had him answer the phones, so that was interesting, him trying to communicate with other people, with suppliers. Hold on 1 second, I'll transfer them to you, all right, hold on.
Okay.
We had a lot of fun, poking Josh in the ribs, as if you will, to make him go through that.
While Josh continues his experiment in the Branks mask, Chad and DJ continue their reconstruction of the liar rack.
That should do it for the steel work. Let's get with Dusty and start skinning it with wood. Probably 24 gauge. I centered this board.
The liar rack was used by the Puritans to punish sinners, particularly those who lied. The Bible repeatedly references lying as a sin, most notably in the Ten Commandments, which specifically states, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." In the New Testament, Jesus refers to the devil as the father of lies. Dr. Sestak meets with Chad to discuss the gruesome damage caused by the liar rack.
The point of the pentagon, when it would rotate, it spreads their thighs, and when the point comes up, it's actually supposed to hit the bottom of the groin, or that's where, from what we're estimating, that's where the damage is supposed to be coming from.
Sure, and not to mention that, but also the inner part of the thighs would obviously be traumatized as well.
When the victim is on the liar rack, the thigh and groin area becomes scraped and torn. After only a few minutes, the affected area would be totally raw and bloodied. As the Puritans continued to shape the laws of 17th century England, the liar rack and other cruel punishments were used to ensure strict adherence to the Bible. Josh is still wearing the Branks mask. He's been locked inside the device for over an hour, and he's near the breaking point.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck.
Need a what? You're gonna get sick? Do you need to get out of that? What?
You can't swallow.
You can't swallow, and you're gonna get sick. Chad, I think we need to let him out. His jaw's starting to lock up.
1 hour.
What do you think,
60
Dad?
minutes.
It's time, huh?
He paid his dues.
Can you rattle a little bit for me? That's the spirit.
That's
All
the
right,
spirit.
then.
Good
All right,
sport.
Be real careful here. There you go, Big Daddy.
Look at that slobber.
Holy neck, jaws, everything's hurting.
Yummy.
We're so dry. When you're inside that mask, it's hard to swallow. You got all this saliva building up on you, and it's just starting to run out your mouth and everything. All this metal poking you in the head, and then everybody banging on it, and like being inside of a bell.
It's a different way of learning history. I've learned more from this test than I ever did from any history book.
It's very effective, I'll give you that.
The Branks mask was sometimes known as the Scold's Bridle, referencing the crime of common scold. For over 400 years, the common scold law appeared in the English and Welsh statute books. Amazingly, it wasn't until 1967 that the law was declared obsolete by the courts. The historical experiment on the Branks is complete. The team spends the rest of the day on the liar rack trying to finish the reconstruction phase of the experiment.
It turned into one of those projects that, 10, 11 o'clock at night was actually coming together, and you could see it coming together. You wanted to see it completed, so you didn't want to go home. I don't want to say, building torture devices is fun, but, it's something to see when it starts coming together.
4 minutes.
Okay.
How we looking? Are we looking good over here?
Ah!
They were on for a minute. Come on, Big Daddy, let me have her.
The team's hard work is starting to pay off, and the lyre rack is nearly complete. In 17th century colonial Boston, the Puritans often punished convicted liars by whipping them in public. Lying was sometimes punishable by death in 17th century England. The lyre rack is ready for testing. The guys strap in the dummy, they attach weights to the legs, and wait for the countdown.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh! That looks like a rough ride. Get it. 8 seconds, 8 seconds.
We used one of the dummies that Eric's team provided for the lyre's rack, and it gave us a more graphic representation of what's going to actually happen to a victim on it.
Oh my God.
That is such a tender area.
Grinding on him. Yeah. It already wore holes in his pants.
They used jean material on the dummy, and it basically ate through that in less than 30 seconds, just kind of mauled through it.
There's the money shot right there.
The lyre rack looked like it'd be pretty painful from everything on the waist down.
Oh my God, that is brutal.
That thing doesn't look like it would kill you or do anything like that. It would just ruin you for a good while, possibly forever.
The dummy test on the lyre rack is complete, and the team resets the device for the next phase of the experiment. Dusty, one of the team's carpenters, has volunteered to ride the lyre rack.
The safety gear that Brian handed me was a stupid beaver bottom pants thing that one of the art guys made.
The art department wanted to have a little fun with Dusty, so they covered his padded safety pants with artificial fur. Brian also supplies Dusty with a protective cup.
Climb aboard. Aboard.
We help him up. We get him pulled in tight. We get his hands into the restraints. Everybody's ready. Now it's time for Chad to start the wheel.
I thought, man, this is gonna hurt.
The team is standing by, poised to test their recreation of the lyre rack on Dusty, one of the carpenters who helped design and reconstruct the device. Fortunately for Dusty, the guys have incorporated a safety harness which will reduce the impact on his groin.
Okay, are we ready? And on 3, 2, 1, go, we'll begin. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go!
And then Chad starts going real slow. I'm like, come on, if you're gonna hurt me, do it right. And then all of a sudden it starts getting faster and faster. I like egging Chad on.
Oh, come on, Chad. Is that all you got?
Because I knew it would just make him mad, make him go faster. And then he had to have Josh come in and help him, so.
Your buddy Josh is on task now.
Luckily, I had plenty of protection on. But all it is you just feel wood scraping and scraping and scraping up against the inside of your legs. It's like one of those things where the more it happens, the more it hurts. If you don't have the safety gear on, this device would be extremely painful.
Okay, stop. Are you done?
I'm done when you guys say I'm done. Let's go. Come on, keep going.
As the guys continue to ravage Dusty's undercarriage, he lifts himself away from the device, impacting the spikes on the ceiling. Fortunately, the team crafted these out of harmless soft foam. Victims of the real lyre rack weren't so lucky.
Looking at his face, I mean, he's really struggling. He's fighting with every bit of energy he can to stay on that thing and maintain himself as he's going through it.
it definitely dishes out some damage. It actually works for, I think, what it was intended to.
Coming down.
Hold tight.
Pinky.
Whoa! When I first got down to walk it off, it was, I could tell that my legs are going to be sore for the rest of the day.
You screwed up our beaver suit.
All in here, it's real sore from where it was scraping. I mean, I wasn't feeling nothing up in here, but this is all just, ow.
But you're okay?
I'm fine.
Yeah, you're all sweaty.
The lyre rack that we built, certainly not going to cause death. Definitely some bow-legged walking for sure. Possibly a little more damage than that. Dusty held up like a champ, though.
Having the chance to rebuild these inventions from history and trying them out, it's reliving history is pretty awesome.
The lyre rack was a product of the strict Christian practices of the Puritans, who had a major influence on English politics from 1649 until 1660. When King Charles II restored the monarchy in 1660, many of the harsh policies of the Puritans faded away. The historical experiment on the lyre rack is complete. Brian has been researching another historical device, an ancient hunting weapon, the atlatl. Often constructed with a stick and hook, the atlatl was used to increase the force of a thrown spear or dart. Scholars consider the atlatl to be one of the first tools ever invented by humans.
When we first had the idea to do an atlatl, we found out that there was more than one essential way to do it. So I was like, well, why don't we get two people involved in it and make two different ones to see which one works best? And that evolved into a competition.
Josh and I are approaching it from two different directions. He's building his more or less to his specs. I'm building mine as close as I can get to what I would think it would be historically accurate. Basically a piece of stick with a channel in it and a stub at the end.
Where I got my idea for my atlatl was I was just going off of pictures, and I just took a combination of different ones, and it seemed to work out pretty good.
Looks like a stick with a bolt in it.
That's the idea.
The atlatl uses leverage to achieve greater velocity in throwing darts and spears. When loaded, the spear or projectile sits in the atlatl, with its back resting on the pivot point of the lever. During the throw, the device pivots, launching the projectile at the target. The atlatl can deliver 200 times the power and 6 times the range of a normally thrown spear.
And this thing can go for like 100 yards. It's pretty sweet.
The atlatl is one that we actually find throughout the world in many different countries. It seems all civilizations had some sort of a spear used for hunting. It's very practical, it's very easy to make. And this thing could bring down just about any kind of a large animal, including the mammoths. If you have enough of these guys slinging these things at a mammoth, you're gonna bring it down.
When the Spanish came over to conquer South America looking for gold, they were surprised to find that these atlatls could actually pierce their armor.
In the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés arrived in South America equipped with advanced weapons in the form of firearms. While technologically superior to the Aztec natives, the conquistadors still faced serious danger, mainly due to the power of the atlatl. The guys are perfecting their recreations of the atlatl.
Might want to watch your head over there.
Duck and cover, duck and cover.
No, that was what I was afraid of. It's going to kick the bottom out.
They quickly realize that the throwing technique and type of projectile is just as important as the design of the device.
I broke it! What's up now? What?
As the atlatl evolved, designers realized that the shape and style of the projectile were key to the accuracy of the device. Fletchings were soon added to the back of the spears, and not long after, designers realized that flexible projectiles were the most accurate.
2 hands up until...
Josh and Brian spent a little more time honing their skills.
See? Much better, eh? Yeah.
Then it's time to test their experiments.
We decided to do the competition with 2 targets, and whoever hits the target more would obviously be a winner. And then Chad decided to make it an official competition with points, regulations, and things like that.
At the end, I'll add it all together. The high score wins.
Brian and Josh are ready to begin the Atlatl competition.
Ready to roll with this?
I'm ready to do it.
Bragging rights are on the line. Which recreation of the Atlatl will prove supreme? The entire team at the Scare Factory is on hand, ready to witness Brian and Josh compete for supremacy on the Atlatl.
Oh, not bad.
A little short, that ain't bad.
All right, so where are we standing at? 0-0, right?
Walk it, baby, walk it. Each of us had 3 spears. He would throw one, I would throw one, and back and forth.
Josh and Brian's Atlatl contest is similar to some of the first ever sporting competitions. Once humans were able to build stores of food, they could spend free time on recreational activities. Competitions testing hunting skills and other forms of athleticism soon followed.
Here we go. Here's my last shot. Oh, crap.
He hit it, that's a 1.
I told you it was gonna hook
That's
on.
a -5.
I told you it was gonna hook on.
That is 0, Josh.
Oh, man.
He was able to hit the target, or at least knock into it more than I was. So they gave him more points for that, and he won.
It's great to experience an Atlatl. I got maybe, a taste of how hard it would be to survive in those times. These guys were very proficient with these things. If they weren't, they went hungry.
After the invention of the bow and arrow around 1000 BC, use of the Atlatl became scarce. But in Australia, Aboriginal tribes are still using the Atlatl for hunting. And in Alaska, native tribes have their own version of the Atlatl, called the Nukak, or Husik. The experiment on the Atlatl is complete. The next morning, the team begins to recreate one of history's most gruesome execution devices, the Brazen Bull. Designed by Perillus, a brass founder of ancient Greece, the Brazen Bull was designed as a new form of execution. Built in the 6th century BC, the original Brazen Bull was hollow and constructed completely out of brass. Victims were placed inside and a fire was lit underneath, roasting them alive. Chad and the team meet to discuss the design and construction plan for the bull.
Hey.
So, figured I would have Dan get started on the Brazen Bull.
Yeah, he can build a horse a lot faster than anybody. Instead of doing the bronze bull, we're actually going to build armor plating like that would have been on a medieval horse. So that's actually how we're going to skin it.
The Brazen Bull recreation will be challenging and time-consuming. The device needs to be large enough to fit a person, sturdy enough to support their weight, all while maintaining the artistic bull-shaped design. While Chad and Josh sketch out plans for the bull, DJ meets with Dr. Sestak to find out what victims of this horrible device actually experienced inside the bull-shaped oven.
How long do you think someone would last inside of this?
I think, DJ, they'd last a matter of minutes, not hours. I think the first thing would be a problem with breathing and running out of oxygen. And if they didn't die from asphyxiation or hypoxia, then of course you've got the thermal injuries by the hot metal. It's going to break down the skin. You're going to lose all of your ability to thermoregulate once the skin's been hurt. So it would be, an end point would be no different than any other flesh that's cooked.
Perillus designed the Brazen Bull with 2 other horrific features. He built a complex system of tubes and stops inside the bull's head so that the victim's screams would be converted into sounds resembling a mad bull. Perillus also added an olfactory feature. By adding incense to the bull, the putrid smells of burning flesh would be converted into sweet-smelling perfumes. The fabricators begin framing the brazen bull.
We'll basically bend 1/4-inch wire and we'll use our eyeball as a level and a square and a tape measure and everything else. You basically put it up there and you tack it, and if it doesn't look right, you got to cut it off and you grab another piece and bend it.
We got a couple more hours worth of this, then the sheet metal should be here, then we can go ahead and start putting the skin on it.
After receiving the brazen bull from the brass founder, King Phalaris asked Perillus if the device had been tested. When Perillus replied no, the Mad King tricked him into climbing inside the device. Once trapped inside, a fire was sparked, making poor Perillus the designer and the first victim of the brazen bull. The team continues the construction phase of the experiment, but there is still one more historical recreation left to tackle: the pillory. One of history's most famous and humiliating devices, the pillory confined the victim's head and hands inside a set of stocks. These stocks were mounted on a large stage, usually located in a public place.
The pillory is obviously a popular device because it was simple to construct, simple to maintain, simple to use, and readily visible as an implement of deterrence.
The Puritans' restrictive policies deeply influenced the work of author Nathaniel Hawthorne. In Hawthorne's novel, The Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne is publicly humiliated when forced to stand before the townspeople in front of the pillory. The team meets to discuss the recreation of the device.
We're gonna need a hinge, all right? Some big medieval-looking gate hinge or something one end, and then on the other end, a latch. And then I think what would be cool is a medieval-style lock.
There's got to be a lot of bracing on this because the person that we're going to put in this probably doesn't want to be here. Make sense?
Yep.
Awesome.
DJ and the other fabricators get back to work on the brazen bull, and Dusty takes charge of the pillory experiment.
Scrawny little hands would probably fit through that hole because mine can, so we just put kind of shim it. Yeah, there's no way in hell I can get my hand out of that. Not without breaking something. That's awesome. Quick fix.
In 1703, English writer Daniel Defoe, author of Robinson Crusoe, was found guilty of criticizing the government and sentenced to 3 days in the pillory. Many of the townspeople supported Defoe's opinions and showered him with flowers in lieu of the traditional rotten vegetables or stones. English scholar J.R. Moore later said that no man in England but Defoe ever stood in the pillory and later rose to eminence among his fellow men. As Dusty continues his reconstruction of the pillory, Dr. Sestek checks in with him to discuss the dangers of the device.
They got me building the pillory. So what kind of damage do you think this thing could do to somebody?
See, I don't think this device would be lethal in and of itself. If you were struck with a rock or a heavy piece of metal or something like that, it could be a lethal device.
While the pillory was considered a relatively mild punishment in its day, occasionally it proved fatal. Criminal John Waller, guilty of robbery and perjury, perished when struck in the head by multiple stones. The brazen bull is starting to take shape, and the team continues the difficult task of molding and welding the bull's steel skin.
I don't think that bull has ears on it or horns.
Nostrils, essence of eye, essence of ear, and horn.
I get to do the ears.
I'll do the nostrils.
The brazen bull was frequently used by the pagans of ancient Rome to execute Christians. Phalaris, the ruthless king who commissioned the brazen bull, reportedly participated in cannibalism.
From a build standpoint, it had its own particular sense of challenges. to the point where literally they spent an entire night working on it.
I am exhausted. We've been working on this bowl for an extremely long time. This is by far the longest time-consuming thing that we've had to do so far. We don't even know if we're gonna get it to work properly. We're pushing ourselves past the limit.
Once rumors of the horrific brazen bull spread through Europe, other cultures had their own versions commissioned. Texts suggest that the Greek city-states of Rhodes, Gela, and Crete all roasted criminals alive in their very own brazen bulls. The next morning, Dusty puts the finishing touches on the pillory. Dan, one of the shop's designers and resident troublemaker, has agreed to be the test subject.
We're gonna put Dan the Bastard in this because his name says it all. He is a bastard. So this is probably gonna be the best device to put him in.
Dan really messes with people. To me, he comes across that anything you can do, he can do better. And, you know, pretty much we're all just pieces of shit, and he's great, you know.
I can't even work with this people, man.
He likes to see how far he can push somebody. His idea of funny is making somebody else not feel good.
As far as putting Dan in this, I don't think it'll shut him up for good, but it'll at least give us all some satisfaction. All right, I think we're good to go.
To ensure the authenticity of the experiment, Dan and the team need a public setting. They relocate to a nearby farmer's market where the citizens of Columbus can participate.
Wait, I thought you guys were drawing names. Before they locked me in the pillory, it was kind of funny. We were all laughing. Yeah, then they put me in it. It wasn't funny anymore.
Me and Dan have been friends for so long. I know a lot of stuff that he's done, so I wrote a big list of, like, you know, some of the things he probably should be punished for.
The cripplement of a band leader, stealing soybeans from an English boy, very wrong, very naughty. The illicit ticklement of sick children. For these crimes, you shall be punished.
The pillory experiment would be incomplete without the addition of Rotten Tomatoes.
Give them all a little pre-squish.
Yeah, soften them babies up.
Like this?
Dan is in position, ready to experience firsthand the humiliation of the pillory. Dan, one of the fabricators at the Scare Factory, has agreed to place himself inside the pillory while local townspeople pelt him with insults and Rotten Tomatoes.
When I saw that I was going to be put in the pillory, I didn't get real anxious about the whole experience until I got hit with the first tomato. And it quickly went downhill from that point on.
Payback's a
We embarrassed him in front of all these people. You know, like, this is the town he lives in. Columbus is a small town, and he was humiliated in front of all these people.
I thought it was going to be really, really painful. And after about 10 minutes, I couldn't really feel my head anymore.
And it wasn't just us throwing stuff at him. We started pulling people off the streets.
Wait, I don't even know you people.
Ladies were coming up and just pelting him with tomatoes.
I think the lasting thing that I would walk away with was how easily the crowd was willing to pick something up, a tomato, and throw it at a total stranger. That, to me, is very interesting. That says a little bit about human nature and the mob mentality.
By the mid-19th century, most countries had abolished use of the pillory. In England, an Act of Parliament was issued in 1837, ending all legal use of the device. But in the US, the pillory was used in the state of Delaware through the year 1904.
It's pretty humiliating. I completely understand why they would use this as a form of torture or punishment for people in the past.
The historical experiment on the pillory is complete. Back at the shop, the rest of the team finishes the reconstruction of the brazen bull.
It's very time-consuming, it's noisy, it's loud. But, 30 hours later, we ended up with it finished, and we actually, had horns and eyes, and that all came from the welders. Basically, it was an entire steel project.
I mean, we put a lot into it. Kermit put his blood into it. Nobody put any tears into it, but there's some blood and sweat, so I'm glad it's done.
The Roman Empire continued to use the brazen bull to deter Christians from spreading their faith. In 118 AD, Saint Eustace, patron saint of Madrid, Spain, was roasted alive in the brazen bull. Unfortunately, he was accompanied by his wife and children.
We get ready to bring the brazen bull into the testing area. You gonna ride it?
I think so.
DJ jumps on top of it like he's gonna ride the bull, so that was kind of a proud moment for all the welders and the fabricators, so it was a proud moment for all of us.
The brazen bull is repositioned in the testing area, and the team is ready to see the device in action.
Now it's time to bring in the test dummy. We certainly wanted to show what would have happened to a test body inside. So the art guys built a practical body that we could put in. There you go. You'd be literally fed into the side of this thing, and then we'd build the fire underneath. Shall we close him in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Now we're cooking. That's what we're looking for.
We got the fire going, and then all of a sudden you see all these flames on the inside where the body had actually caught on fire.
Come on, we're burning. Hey, we're burning, baby.
I think it's time.
Yeah.
Let's call it.
All right, save it.
Wait.
Here we go.
And we went back in there, and we had extinguished everything, put the fire out and everything else, and you could actually see this entire body just burnt to a crisp.
What's cooking? Just spilling right out on the floor.
The burned body smelled horrible, but I imagine anybody that you would pulled out a brazen bull would reek as well. Until you step back away from it to where your mind can't really make sense of what you're seeing until you see a burnt rib cage or, a piece of skull. And as soon as that happens, the horror hits you of what you're looking at.
While the evil king of Sicily had Perillus, the creator of the brazen bull, serve as the first test subject, the king had him pulled out of the device before he perished. Not long after, the erratic King Phalaris ordered his servants to throw Perillus off a steep cliff, leading to his death.
I could really identify with Perillus. He spent all this time creating this device to torture people inhumanely before death. I spent all this time creating our version of the brazen bull, and it was only natural that I got put in it.
Time to go in.
All right, get into that brazen bull shape.
You guys the respirator?
That's me.
Okay. Make sure you got that on and it's fitted to you.
We ready? Let's seal her up.
Bye.
See ya.
We drilled a hole in the side, and we were using a heat gun to force hot air, basically cook it like an oven to simulate the heat coming off of a fire.
I think we're getting something now, Chad.
While the intense heat will cause incredible damage to the skin, the most dangerous aspect of the brazen bull is the inhalation of the deadly smoke.
I mean, it started to get hot, I started to sweat, and I was getting just uncomfortable.
Basically got it up to 99 degrees, but I think it was probably the fog machine that was simulating the smoke got to him more than anything.
DJ. Yeah. How you feel?
Get me out of this! Get me out of this thing!
Can't take it.
That is warm in there.
And the smell's not real good either.
What is that smell? Yeah, like these guys. Wow, it is. Man, it's like. Whew.
Man, I mean, I'm definitely not a claustrophobic, but I mean, I don't like being in there with that heat and that smoke. It was terrible for myself being in there, just with the heat gun. I couldn't imagine having an actual fire underneath the stomach of that bull. It's so inhumane that people actually spend time sculpting something so beautiful for something so terrifying.
King Phalaris continued his tyrannical rule of Sicily for several more years, until his regime was overthrown by King Telemachus in 554 BC. As a punishment for his cruel dictatorship, Telemachus sentenced Phalaris to death by the brazen bull.
History is kind of trial and error, because that's part of the process. We want to see what it took to really make something like that happen. That's how we get from, history to now. It's kind of interesting being part of that process.